we touched on this before, item 8, distribution of funds to towns. First of all, we talked about the debt service. I raise that in the context of governance because what we're suggesting is that would be built into the cooperative agreement and the bylaws, so this isn't something we can change our mind about later. That we will define at what point, meeting operating expenses and the required reserves, that beyond that, the first place that extra money goes will be part of reimbursing the towns. The co-op will be committed to that as a principle. It will not be able to back out of that. And frankly, and you talked about some of the other people knocking your doors, I think one of the biggest selling points of WiredWest is really two things. One, you own and control it, and two, it's going to pay you back. And nobody else is offering you that kind of deal. So we want to make sure that that's an ironclad guarantee that the towns will get paid back in the appropriate order when the money's in. Now, there are a couple of other ways. Let me just run through these, okay? There are a couple of other ways that towns are actually going to get money out of this that you may not have realized. First of all, it's required. We're exempt from federal and state taxes, income taxes, under 47C. However, we are required, before we go into operation, to pay a pilot to each of the member towns. Now, at that point,
does everybody know what pilot is?
Payment in lieu of taxes. Right.
Payment in lieu of taxes.
Right.
Payment in lieu of taxes. So we're tax exempt, but we still have to pay something to the towns as if we weren't tax exempt.
Right. Now, obviously, at that point, we won't have a lot. Starting out, we won't have a lot of property, so that pilot might be low. But over time, the network will own a lot of property. When the network the co-op will own a lot of property, the network is transferred to us. So the pilot payment could be substantial. It's another piece of revenue to the town. Thirdly, as we've learned, when we go to these MBI meetings, the commissioner of the Division of Telecommunications and Cable and one of her legal guys attends these meetings. I think she's on the board of MBI, correct?
Yes, she is.
She is, okay. So the issue was raised to us a couple of weeks ago, and we've grappled with this a little ourselves. But it appears, we haven't resolved this finally, but it appears that we will have to have cable franchises in every town in which we operate. That even though we're not delivering this by what's called RF, the usual cable signal with the satellite dishes and all that, that we're doing it by IP, the fact that we are selling programming to customers may tip the scale and say, you're basically a cable operator in that regard. You're a digital cable operator, but you're a cable operator. What goes along with that is that typically when cable operators have franchises in towns, they pay a franchise fee to the town, somewhere in the low single digits, sometimes up to 5%. We haven't grappled with what that might be, but I just want people to realize that there may be, out of our revenues, we have to commit to, probably before the debt service, is that the towns are going to get some kind of cable franchise fee, if in fact that turns out to be the case.
It could be $1.
It might be, well, usually they're based on revenue, and our revenues in the early days are not going to be a hell of a lot. But down the road, where we have substantial revenues, 3, 4, 5% of the revenues could be substantial, and then they have to be allocated based on the business in the town. So we'll go back to that revenue issue.
In cities where Verizon has fiber, Fios, do they have to have a cable franchise in those cities? And, and do they only pay the percentage on their
they may have a kind of a statewide franchise, but they do have a franchise. Okay, so, and we're getting this advice directly from the people who regulate cable. So we haven't necessarily bought into it because we like an independent opinion, but I must admit they showed me some stuff that my feeling was like, it's kind of looking that way. So that might be another small but growing revenue stream to the town. And then I say other, we talked about when the debt service is paid off, that the board would determine what we do with all this money that's piling up. That's all. So I don't know what that other is. We can't really determine that now. We can't, it would not make sense to pre-prescribe in our governance documents how that gets done, what it is, how much it is. But nonetheless, that's a decision to be made down the road, that there may be additional revenues. We could lower rates we could give money to towns, we could subsidize low-income and elderly people, but that's something the board would decide. When we got to the point, and we have the luxury of the money.
We could buy every town a fire truck. Yes, sir.
Well, different sizes depending on the towns.
I have a question from a select board member that was very concerned when we talked about this in the select board meeting last night regarding the debt service. And he was under the impression that debt service meant interest only.
No.
And I just wanted to hear it from you that that is interest and
Principal and interest.
That is interest and principal, that is total debt service.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Are there any topics that we haven't brought up? That you
Yeah, quickly.
Yeah.
I mentioned the liabilities, that those would be assumed by the cooperative as opposed to individual towns. And the last thing, this came up briefly, withdrawal from the co-op. A number of towns have said, we don't want to go in unless we have a way to get out. But keep this in mind, we're going to propose something there, but you won't be able to pull out 2 years from now. Once you're in, you got to expect you're going to be in there for a long time, otherwise it doesn't give this thing a fair chance to operate. Now when it comes to withdrawing, I can imagine two scenarios in which a town might want to withdraw. One is one that's been talked about. People say like, oh, WiredWest is doing a terrible job of running this. We can do a better job. We want to take our fibers and go home. So they want to withdraw. Okay. There could be circumstances in which they could do that, but what Jim was talking about, these edge cases and things like that, they can't take their fibers away and all of a sudden cut off a bunch of our customers. So it would have to be some kind of negotiated arrangement at that point, probably involving some kind of appraisal of the worth of what assets. The other reason a town might want to withdraw is simply that you get out there 8-10 years, you know what, these guys at WiredWest are doing a great job, we're tired of going to meetings, we don't want to bother with this, we've got some other things we want to invest in our town, so we want to take our investment back up. It's kind of in corporate terms, if you're familiar with these terms, put and call. You can either call your assets in or you can put them out there and say you're going to buy them. So we're going to look at, I think that those will remain, frankly, somewhat vague. What you really need for that is a process of appointing, how you appoint the appraisal. Usually one side appoints one guy, another side appoints the other, and the two of them appoint a third, and now you have a way to appraise the value of the assets. So there will be a way in which if towns decide down the road, significantly down the road, I'm just going to throw out a number, at least 7 years to have a chance where we're really operating and breaking even, at least, and covering debt service, so we don't want to disrupt the operations, that something like that might be possible. One other way of withdrawing is being kicked out. Now, we hope it doesn't come to that, but when the towns come in, the cooperative agreement is a contract that says you're going to pay this, you're committing to this money, and you're going to put it up on some kind of withdrawal schedule based on what the construction is. Now, suppose some town just goes completely bonkers, and decides like, the hell with this, we're not giving these people a nickel. At some point, there needs to be, one, penalties for holding back money that's due, but secondly, worst came to worst, and this is a worst come to worst, is to say like, okay, the board has voted to sever you from the co-op. We will do an appraisal of what your assets are worth. You can go away and keep what you want, but that would be an involuntary situation. Obviously, we hope it never comes to that, but in documents like that, you have to anticipate the worst. So you would see something like in there, everybody can be sitting and think, oh, geez, they're going to kick me out of the co-op. But think of it the other way. You want that guy screwing everything up when we're all working together and really going the great guns? No, you don't. So there needs to be a way. As we said earlier in the meeting, we have no way in the current bylaws to tell somebody you're no longer a member. That's why we can't do that. That was never put in there, and it wouldn't be for just arbitrary reasons. It would be for non-performance. We're not saying, well, we're going to reorganize. We don't like these 3 towns. We're just going to kick them out. That won't fly, but it really has to be for substantial reasons. That's the end of the list. Geez. It's really 9 o'clock. Anybody have anything else?
Yeah, this gentleman here, the blue shirt.